Let's start with enumeration. Let me so even some documentation I had prepared for you all. Now this is very interesting. Okay, who can list down me the data types in Java? What are the data types in Java we have? Who can list them down for me? Yes, anyone? Who can list down the primitive data types? Okay. Primitive data types you can list down. Int, short, long, boolean. Okay. Is there a type called as byte also? Is there a type called as byte? Yes, no, maybe. In Java, is there a type called as byte? Primitive data types in Java. There is a type called as byte, right? Now, what all does the byte store? The byte has a fixed range of values. It only stores 256 values. Byte can only store 256. Byte has a fixed range. See, byte can only store between this range to this range. So if your data is between the range of minus 128 to positive 127, then that qualifies. So there are how many values? These are how many values? From minus 128 to positive 127, there are how many values? If you can count them for me. How many? They are 256, correct, because there is a zero in between. So now my question to you guys is, if I declare a variable of type byte, what values can I give it? So if I say byte B, what different values can I give to this B? So let me come to Excel sheet. Let me come to an Excel sheet. So if I try to do this byte B, now to this B, what values can I give? I can give these values. Which all values can I give? Sorry. You have to go from minus 127 minus 126. So which all values can I give to this B? I can give any value between this range. I can give any value between this range. So if I now remove these two lines, so I have first value, second value, third value, blah blah blah, and 128 or 127. I have 256 values, correct? So now my question is, if I make an object of byte, I make a variable of byte rather, and I say byte B, I can only give value in this range which I have put over here. Yes, no, maybe, or can I give any value? Can I give B as 1000? Yes, guys, what do you all say? Or sir, you can only give between these limited range of 128 minus 128 to plus 127 only, not out of that range. So can I give B as plus 128? Possible or not possible? Who can tell me? B 1000 possible or not possible? Yes, guys, let's try to make the session a bit interactive. B 1000 possible or not possible?
Not possible, sir.
Not possible. B 128. B 128.
Not possible, sir.
Why not possible?
It should be minus 128 to 127.
In that range only, okay? So we can't, can we call them as the predefined values? Yet whatever value is there should be between these predefined values only. So what is the predefined value range for a byte? In this range, correct? So if you have understood this concept, your concept of enum is clear. 99.9% enum is done. If you can just understand that that variable can only store value from a limited set of data, it cannot have infinite data. If I make a string value, if I make a string name, now is there restriction on the range? Is there any restriction on the name what I can store? So there is no restriction, right? But if I make a boolean b, a byte b, is there a restriction? Yes. Okay, is there restriction for boolean? So if I make boolean status, is there any restriction for this boolean status, or I can put any value in this? What is the restriction on the status? What can come in status? Only two values. Which are they?
True or false?
Correct.
0 or 1 or
True or false, right? So similarly, when I declare a variable and if I make it into a enum, then when I make into a enum, let's say I make enum colors, okay, or enum, let's say weekdays, then I will define the values of that enum here itself, that this enum can only contain values from this range, okay, and it is a good practice to put the values in capital because they are constants, comma separated. Forgot Wednesday. So now when I will make an object of this enum, so when I make an object of weekday, okay, enum naming, enum is just like a class. You can just visualize enum to be like a class with some restriction. So now when I will make an object of this weekday, let's say weekday w1 equals to, this w1 can have values from which range now? This w1 can have infinite values or only between this range now. So now if I want to store Wednesday, I will have to say is new whatever is your class. These are all static data. Okay, you can just think of them as all your static and final and public. This data you can think as public, static and final. So if I have a static data, can I access it with the help of the class name directly? Yes or no? So no, don't use do keyword because you don't instantiate it. Just directly say weekday dot and now Wednesday. That's all. So this enum which I have made over here has these predefined set of values. So whichever I will make a reference of this enum will have values from this set only, not outside that set. And each data enum is public, static and final. Okay. So now if I try to display w1, what will it display me? What is the value of this? So if I try to now say byte b equals to 101, and if I display b, what will it display me? So we are just telling that you can give the value to the byte, but that should be between this range only. And when I display the byte, it displays the value. So I am saying you can give value to the enum object. So weekday w1 is the object of the enum, but with a restriction that that value will be only from this set. And as these are all static data, I can directly say weekday dot and the name of the enum attribute. So what will this display me now? If I do SOP w1, yes guys, what will this
Wednesday.
display me? What will this display me? If I do SOP B and B is 101, will display me it will display me 101, correct? Similarly, now if I do weekday, it will display me Wednesday. Let's try to check it. Let's try creating a enum. Okay, so today was week 13 and new enum. So you have option of enum over here, and you can call it as weekdays. Okay, and now give the values over here, whatever you want to give. They will be given an index. Okay, they will be given an index value. So in which order you are giving matters a lot. Okay, so index, you can give them on one line or different line. It's up to you. Okay, at the end if you want you can give a semicolon, or if you want you can skip the semicolon. It is not mandatory. If you give also good, if you don't give also good. So now I have this enum. So now I come to my enum demo. No, don't go into generics. Let's go into, where did I make a package of enum? I didn't make a package. Okay, I directly made a class. See, I made a package over day 13 generics. Okay, I'll put it in bit enum. Okay, so now let's create a package. So a package is made by enums. Right? Okay, and I have a enum weekday. Now let's try to make a class. Okay, enum demo. So if I go here and if I say weekdays w1, now these are all static by default. Okay, these are all public, static and final. Okay, so by default they are public, static and final, so don't need to write that by default. So now as this is static, so can I directly access weekday dot Monday? Yes, I can. Weekdays dot Monday. And now if I try to display w1, it will display me Monday. So if you have any limited set of values and you have to play only between those values, then you can put all those into a enum and it will only be matched between those values. Okay, so let's say if you are having a customer status or you're making an order status, okay, what all status should be for the order? So you can say order is in progressive, try to make the enum as capital, is in progress or has been cancelled. So if someone is making for a Flipkart or Amazon and has placed the order, in which state that order is in progress, it is cancelled, it is in transit, it is delivered. Okay, so what all states? So now your order status will be checked only between these values. So you go there and you make a order status. Some customer has placed an order, so I want to check his order status. So I am guaranteed that it will be between these only, so that order was delivered. So if I display OS1, it will display me delivered. Okay, so this is what the basic usage of enum is, that it will only have finite set of values and whichever object you make of this should have only any one value from this set only, not outside the set. And enum is in broad, you can visualize it as a class only. So what all things you can do with a class, you can do with the enum also. What all things you can do with a class, you can do with the enum also. So if you want to declare data in a data variables, if you want to declare constructor, all that also you can do in a enum. Now when do we use that, I will show you all. So whatever you can do in a class, you can do it in a enum also. Getter, setter also you can do. What happened? The okay, so here your constructor is only private in a enum. Okay, the enum constructor is private. Then I can have getter, setters also. So whatever I can have any method also. Void display. Now how I work with that, I will show you all. So and each enum class extends the enum called as enum. By birth it extends the enum called as enum over here. Okay, so you cannot extend any other enum because by birth it is extending the enum interface, that enum. So let's go to the theory part and try to understand. Okay, so enum is a special class. Okay, you cannot categorize as it is a class because there is a lot of difference between the enum. So I have listed that also down, what difference they have. So it is just like a class, it is like a class, you can say, that represents a group of predefined constants. This is what is the catch. Your enum will have group of predefined constants. So your enum will only have a limited set of values and you have to play with those values only. The variable must be equal to one of the values that have been predefined for it. So the enum variable or the enum reference which you will create, the enum reference which we will create must be equal to any one of the values that are predefined in the enum. Okay, each enum variable is constant, each constant is public, static and final. Okay, so each, so in your enum we can have group of predefined constants and each constant is public, static and final. Okay, separate them with a comma. Note, it is better that you write it in uppercase. Okay, and all enums implicitly extend this enum, java.lang.enum, and as Java does not support multiple inheritance, an enum cannot extend anything else. So enum cannot extend any other enum because it is by default extending this java.lang.enum. Okay, so examples is you can have directions. I know there are a finite set of values for it, north, south, east, west. I can have weekdays, as I showed, values can be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, blah blah blah, 7 values. Now what is the difference between enum and class? Enum, just like a class, has attributes and methods. Okay, as I mentioned over here, enum can also have attributes. These are enum attributes. These are enum methods, getter setters, display. So enum can also have all that stuff. And those at the start are your constants. Okay, remember these. These are your enum constants. These are my enum constants. So enum cannot be used to create an object. You cannot use new keyword. You cannot use new keyword against a enum. Enum weekdays w1 is new weekdays cannot be used. So now if I make a enum of weekdays, if I make a enum weekdays, if I make this enum, then I cannot say okay, all the protocol which applies for a class applies for enum also. So try to name it as with a capital. So weekdays w1 is new weekdays. This is not permissible. This is not permissible. This is not permissible. Okay? It cannot extend other classes. So you cannot say enum weekdays extends. So if I have a class, okay, let's say class student, you cannot say enum weekday extends students. This is also not possible. This is also not permissible. Not permissible. So enum can have attributes and methods. The difference is that each enum constant is public, static, and final. It is unchangeable, cannot be overridden. Enum cannot be used to create object, not possible. Enum cannot extend another class. This is also not possible. It can implement interfaces. Enum can implement interfaces. So if I have a interface, okay, shape, and if I have any abstract method in that, abstract public void area. So if I have this code, my enum can implement this. Enum can implement a enum can implement an interface. So it cannot extend a class, but it can implement interface. It cannot implement, okay, it cannot extend any other enum also. So you can it cannot extend other classes. It cannot extend other enums also. So if you make a enum direction, then that enum cannot extend the weekdays enum, not permissible. So enum cannot extend any other enum. Enum cannot extend a class. All enum can do is it can implement interface. This is permissible. Okay. In Java programming language, we define a enum by using the enum keyword followed by the name of the enum and then the constants inside it, comma separated, and the last you can put a semicolon if you want to, or you can skip. Okay, like any other variable or objects, we can make enum as a data member of a class. So you can put a enum as a data member of a class. So here I made a class called as enum test, and here I have a enum called as weekdays. Here I have a enum called as weekdays. Okay, so if I have a enum called as weekdays, I can have a reference of this enum inside a class. But now the restriction will be this day value can only have values from this range, not outside this range. Okay, so see over here now. What I did is I made a enum test. Okay, let's try to do it practically. So let's try to do it practically. So now I have a enum called weekdays. It has these constant values. Let's remove everything else. Then we'll cover in detail later on. So now if I go to a class student and I want to know which day the student was born. So I will say weekdays birthday. Okay. So now this birthday. So now if I make a constructor, and now if I do a getter, just a getter I want. Okay. So now what it is doing is, so whenever I want to make a object of a student, I need to pass any value of the weekday. So what I come here, I make this object weekday w1 as new weekday. Now when I say student s1 is new student, and I say he was born on a Wednesday, so I pass this, and now if I sys out and if I say s1 dot get birthday, you can say I was born on a I was born on Mondays. Okay, so now you can say, just give a dot and say Wednesday, do a save. Okay, so this will make the code more concise, because you cannot say I was born on any Tom day. So you cannot expect a value that if someone tries to set I was born on a, if someone tries to set this value, it will throw an error, because we know there is no Tom day in the weekdays. It has to get value from this range only, not outside this range. So this makes our application more robust. So where are we? Here, Enum. Okay, so we can pass. So just it is like a class only with some restrictions. Rest everything it will behave like a class. Rest everything it will behave like a class only. Rest all the features will be same like a class. So you can pass that to a function also. Okay, you can use a switch case. Okay, then you can use a switch case. So you can use a switch case. So if I use switch and to this I will pass the w1. So what all values can this have? I can have those many cases. So it can have value as Monday. So I can have a case. So I can say first day of the week. Okay. See, you cannot have string as your cases. So we know when I will display this W, it will be a Monday itself. So don't give it in a string. Keep it without the string. Okay. And then you can break. Similarly, let me give 2 3 cases. Okay. Nearing weekend. Okay. Case Sunday. And okay. So now when I say Wednesday, what will it display? Any guesses? Who can trace the output for me? So what will this display? No, what will this display? So I have taken W1, stored in it the values. Any one value I can store from the enum in that. So from that I have stored it the value Wednesday. Okay, you can just comment out this. Then I switch the W1, so that W1 can have any of the values. So is it having Monday, Friday, Sunday? No, we'll go in default and we'll say hi there. Yes, if I run this code, will display me hi there. Okay, if I want to display nearing weekend, if I want to display, then what I have to do? Set it to a Friday, and if I run this, it will say nearing weekend. So you can put them in the switch case also. Okay, now the order of these are important because it allocates an index to them based on their ordering. So it allocates an index that is called as ordinal value. So that is 0 for the first one, and as we have Sunday as the last one, the ordinal value will be 6 for Sunday. So now switching the switching the W1, if I say W1 dot ordinal, now the cases will be different. So Monday is 0, Friday is 0 1 2 3 4, and Sunday is 6, right? So now as I am taking the ordinal value in the switch case, so it will work on the indexes, not on the actual value. So that's why the order is important. So now what do you think will be the output of this code now? if I have given Friday, is there any ordinal matching? Yes. If I would have given 0, 1 and 2, what would it display? It would only display me for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and rest all would go in default. Rest odd will go in default. Only Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Let's say if I take Tuesday then. So if I take Tuesday, so Tuesday is 0, 1. So we'll come over here. We'll say nearing weekend. Am I understood, guys? So your enums also have a ordinal value. You can traverse that also. You can also fetch all the values in a enum and try to iterate through that. You can also fetch all the values in a enum. So you can say weekday W, and you can say what it is, weekdays, and you can now take all the values from the enum dot values. So it will iterate through that enum, and now you can display the values. So if I display W, will display me all the values of the enum. Will display me all the values of the enum. So that is, you can, using the values method, read all the values of the enum and iterate through it. Okay. And now if you want to display 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, then display W dot ordinal. So now it will not display me the value, it will display me the indexes. Okay. Is that making sense to you all? All this has been listed down in the documentation which I have prepared. Let me read you all through the document. Let me read you all through the document. Okay, so like you can pass a enum as a data member to a class, same like how we pass an integer n, how we pass a string s. Similarly, you can also pass a enum, no problem. Okay, and then you can first make the enum, and then whenever you are making the object, you can pass it as an argument. So whenever I am making the object enum test, you can make the object and you can pass any value from the enum over there. That is, as we had mentioned, level can be low, high, medium. You can switch the values and directly put cases without the double quotes because these are constants. You can loop through an enum. You can have ordinal values. So index value 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay, and you can display the ordinal value also. Okay, so this was basics about enum. Now let's go into the real world application of enums. So for that also I have prepared some documentation for you all. Let me share my screen. So I have taken the pane. So this was the basic enum. Now let's come to an example of enum over here. Okay, so this example of enum is used in the industry. Okay, so all your error messages which you see on the screen, they are finite. So in one application there will be a finite set of error messages. It cannot be that one application is throwing infinite set of error messages. So what I do now is try to understand this. Okay, try to understand this. So now I make a enum, let's say error messages. So each of my error message will have a error code and will have a error message. So my error code will also be a string, and my error message will also be a string. Till now it is just, you can visualize it like a class. You can just visualize it like a class till now, no problem. Okay, then if I would make a constructor of this, ignore the error message right now. So now if I would make a constructor of this, I would make it something like this. But as we know in Enum, the constructor is private. So I'll first make a no args constructor, and then I'll make a parameterized constructor. I'll right click, source, generate constructor using fields, and generate. It generates me a constructor. Okay. Then I can also have getter setters, just like a class. Try to understand this, guys. It's very beneficial for y'all. Okay, so I have this basic. This is not looking like an enum at all. It is just looking like a class. So it is just enum is just a specialized version of a class only with some restrictions. That's all. Now let's say I want to make two error messages that username is invalid, password is invalid. Okay, so now in my application I just have two error messages. I just have two error messages. First error message is E101, and the message for that is, so the error code is E101, and the message is username is incorrect, username is invalid. And I have one more called as E102, password is invalid. Okay, so now what I can do is I can restrict that my objects of my enum should only have these two values. So I will make that constant objects over here only. Okay, so I will say error underscore 1, and these are the values of that error, and comma, I will say error underscore 2, and these are value of that error. So as we know that your enum will only store your predefined objects. So now my two objects are already defined over here. My two objects which I want to make are already defined over here. What happened over here? Okay, the both having the same name. Okay, so now whatever objects I have to make of my error messages enum, I have already made these objects, and these objects are public also and static also and final also. Okay, these are public, static, final objects. So whatever objects I have to make of my error messages, that I will make upfront and keep. So now my error messages, as of now in my application I just have two error messages, error 1 and error 2. Now I go to the driver app, let's say. Okay, so let me make one new class, error messages driver app, and I put my main over there. Okay, so now I take my string username as Alice and string password as Alice123. So username should also be more than 8 characters. Password should also be more than 8 characters. So here the username is invalid. Okay, so I will say if my strlen of username or my okay is less than 8. Okay, what is that? String. How do you find the length of a string? Username dot length, right? If it is less than 8, then what will I do? I will make a error messages enum. Okay, message 1, and it will be from which error message I want now? which error message I want, ERR001. So I want this object, and now each object, this ERR1 is of error messages, and in that I have two data values of string type. Those are over here. So I will come over here and I will say error messages. What is the name? Error messages dot ERR1. And now if I want to display which error has occurred, if I want to display which error has occurred, I can say message1 dot get error message. And now if I try to run this code, it will display me the error message of invalid username. Okay guys, you'll see this code. I'll put them in one screen. Try to practice it. I'll take a break over here and I'll be back by 7 or 7:05. I'll be back. So I'll put them all in one screen for you guys. Okay, getter setters you all know, right? So you all can write your getter setters, and I will put this code also over here. This is the main method of my driver app. So now I want you all to practice this meanwhile till I come, and then we'll move ahead. Okay, so let me try to make it bigger. Okay, so this class ends over here. This is my driver app class. So make a class by that, and then add getter setters over here. I'll be back. So who all were able to do this with the enum? So what basically enums are, you can make the objects of that enum inside the enum itself. See what difference would have been, what would have been the difference between an enum and a class. The difference between an enum and a class would have been this. If this was a class, I would make all the objects of that class outside the class. Now this would be my class, and after the class got over, I would go and make the objects. I would make the objects of that class like this. Error messages, ERR error 1 is new error messages. So ERR error messages 2, new error message, whatever. Password is invalid. So if there were classes, I would make the objects outside the class somewhere else. Okay, and then with these error 1 I can call the setter getters. With these objects I can involve the getter setter. So if I want to get the error code, so I would write a getter for that, and I would say get error code. So just the same concept, nothing new. So if I would do error 1 dot get error code, would give me output as 101. If I wanted to read this, what would I say? error 1 dot get error message. So in a normal class, this would be my operation, how I would operate. But what an enum does is, enum, it creates the object and keeps it inside itself. So all the predefined objects, the predefined constants are kept inside the enum itself only. So these objects which are created are kept inside the enum, comma separated with their names like this. That's all new which has been taught. Apart from that, nothing new in a enum, and just same. So now how I can call with the object, this is the object err1, I can now go and call err1 dot get error code and get error messages. That is what I have done over here. So I have made the error messages enum over here, and the two predefined objects I have added over there. These objects should be added at the start only. You cannot add the objects at the end. It will not permit you. This is not permissible. See, it's throwing an error. So this object should be added at the start of the enum, and each object is having two attributes, and these are the two attributes, and I have a constructor. So now my question is, now this is what if you have understood this, then you have won the race. How many objects of my error messages have I created? Static objects. How many static objects of my error messages have I made and I put in the enum over here? Who can tell me? Yes, anyone? How many static objects of my error messages enum have I made? Yes, guys. Anyone? Am I not audible to you all? Yes, guys. Now tell me, how many objects have I made of the enum? Am I audible to you all? Yes, guys. Apurva, you there? Yeah. So now how many objects of the error message enum have I made? Any guesses? These are the predefined objects. So the objects will be this only, ERR1, 2 or 3. So whenever I will go and make the to any reference of this error messages, I will only give error messages 1, 2 or 3. Apart from that, it will not take. So if I say 4, it will not take. This is not there. If I say 3, it will take. So how many error messages objects have I made and placed in the enum at the start? Yes, 3 objects. And these 3 objects are using which constructor? Is it using constructor A or constructor B? Which constructor is used in creating these objects? A or B? There's no one there to interact. A constructor. How come A constructor? A constructor is blank. Here I am passing a string and I am passing a string. Which is that constructor which is taking string and string? which is the constructor which is being used to create these objects. So how many times this constructor would have been called? The number of objects I have, that many times. So if I display over here sysout, if I display over here sysout parameterized constructor called, my question is how many times will it display this message? How many times will it display this message on the screen? The number of times I create a constructor is called each time I make an object. So how many objects have I made over here? 3 objects. So 3 times it will call this constructor, and I should get this message printed 3 times on the screen, right? So if I do a demo and run, let's check. You see, PC called, PC called, PC called, because each, so what are we doing is we are making the objects and putting those objects in the enum only, and using these 3 objects we can only access the enum. So now if my text box is blank, so what I will say, if my username dot length is equal to 0 or password dot length is equal to 0, so it will throw which error message. Okay, there's a method, length is a method, so it will throw which error message from these 3. Which error message will it throw me? Tell me. If I keep any of them as empty.
Recording in progress.
So my question is, which error message will it throw when I keep them as empty? Now I'm over here and I say both of them, any one of is empty. Then which error messages will it throw? This one, right? So what I can do is I can come here and say error message dot 3, and what I can do is make a reference of it at the start, and then just create the objects. So now at this point, so when it is less than 8, which error message? If username is less than 8, then error message err 1. So we'll come here and we'll say err 1, and it will throw the message of that. When either of them is null, then this error message will become err 3, and I will get to see that message. So now if I put this both as empty, if I put both as empty, but as this, okay, so username, right? So let's say alice at the rate gmail.com, username is there. So will it go in this? No, either of them is 0, will go in this message, and it will display me the message of err3. So what is the err3 message? The message of err3 is text boxes cannot be empty. Let's try to run this code.
Hello, sir.
Okay, text boxes cannot be empty. You can comment out the PC called that I just give you an idea.
Sir, actually you're muted, sir. We can't hear your voice.
Oh, sorry. That's what I've been shouting. That are you able to hear me? Okay.
Yes, sir. Now audible.
Yeah, now audible, right? So what I am doing over here is all these objects I have predefined and kept inside the enum itself. And now as per different use cases, I am checking. So I will just make a reference of the error messages enum, make it to null, and I will check if my username dot length is less than 8. So if the username less than 8, then which error message should it show? Username is invalid. So what I will do is to this enum reference msg1, I will make error message dot error 1, and of that error I want to show what to the user. I want to show this message. So I have getter setters for that. So to get the error code, I have get error code getter, and to get the message, I have get error message. So I will come here and say message dot get error message. So it will give me the error message of error err1. And similarly, now if either of them is 0, then which error message will throw? Then I will throw this error message. Text boxes cannot be blank. So now my reference msg will hold error message dot error 4, error 3, and I will display the message of error 3. So now let's run it. Text boxes cannot be empty. Okay. If I would take this if first, okay, and put it second, and now if I enter over here Alice, so now the username is less than 8, this one, and if the password is less than 8, then this one. Username dot, okay, password dot length. If the password dot length is less than 8, then which error message I will make? Then I will make this err2. Then I will say err2, msg1 will point to it, and it will display me a message of err2. And now both are greater than 0, so this will not throw. Length is not less than 8, this will not throw. And now my password is less than 8, it will throw me err2 message. It will throw me err2 message means I will see this on the screen. Okay, password is invalid. So like this you can configure your enums, guys. These are very much used in the real world development enumerations. Okay. I had made one more example for y'all. Let's see if I can understand that. So if you can understand that, would be great. So example 2. Okay. So what I did is we made a enum called as planet, and I made the 9 ready-made objects. Okay, Pluto is no more a planet. So 8 ready-made objects, and each object is having these two values. So what are those two values? Those two values are in the constructor, mass and radius. Mass and radius. And I can have other data also in the enum. So this is gravity value. Okay. So this is my mass. Then I have the getter methods, get mass and get radius. And now I am calculating the surface gravity. So I can have methods also in the enum. So what that surface gravity will do? Will take this value of g, multiply with the mass, divide with the radius square. And now I come down in the driver app. Okay. And now I want to calculate that for the earth. I want to calculate the surface gravity for earth. So what I do, planet P is planet.earth. So now this object has been called. This object has been called. So the mass is 5.976 and the radius is 6.37. So now when I call with this P, the surface gravity method, when I call this surface gravity method, so mass it will take of earth, radius of earth, and g it will take from here. It will calculate that for me, and it will then store it in a variable, and I will display the variable. Then I can use the getter method also. Mass of earth is this. Radius of earth is, because P has earth, radius of earth is this, and then surface gravity of earth is the answer. This is for one particular planet. If you want to find for all the planets, then put a for each loop, take all the values in the planet, and then call the surface gravity of each. So in each iteration, one value will come in planet. So in the first iteration, Mercury has come in planet, and with Mercury I am calling the surface gravity. So these are my ready-made predefined objects. With these objects I can call these methods of the Enum. Am I understood, guys? Anyone having any confusion? You will be using a lot of enumeration in the real-time development. Now let's take the next topic called as your date and time. Okay, let's take the next topic.